Hi, I'm Sandy Peterson. Today we're going to talk about the gameplay stretch goals that we have for Onslaught 2. First, let's talk about how you get these. Well, most of these are either unlocked or in the process of being unlocked. And as such, as a stretch goal, if you have pledged for $150, you're going to get these free. Now, it doesn't matter how you pledge the $150, whether you do it by pledging at the $1 level, then adding stretch goals to be $150, or whether you get narcotic manuscripts right there, whatever way you do it. If you have $150 total, you're getting all these goals. Okay. Now, of course, there's more than just gameplay goals. There's glow-in-the-dark figures, and there's other things that are unlocked. But the gameplay ones are what we're focused on today because that's kind of my specialty. So let's talk about what these are. Okay, one of the better known ones is the Great Old One Archives. Now, what these are is these are rules for using the faction Great Old Ones as if they were independent Great Old Ones. So for example, if you're playing a game and Great Cthulhu's faction is not in the game, you can use the archives that we give you to play Great Cthulhu as a neutral that anyone can summon, not a summon. So like the Sleeper or Black Goat could summon him and have him be one of the Great Old Ones. Now, what the archives consist of is they have a loyalty card, just like a regular neutral Great Old One, and a spell book they can earn, again, just like a regular Great Old One. Now, the spell book's going to look like an independent spell book, not like a faction spell book, of course. Okay, so far we have unlocked Cthulhu, Black Goat, Crawling Chaos, and the King in Yellow. And it looks like Haster's coming up pretty soon. So that'll be all the core faction Great Old Ones. Some people have asked, what about the expansion Great Old Ones? Well, we want to unlock those too. But, I mean, it's costly to provide the figures, to do the faction things, to spend time testing. So, these are going to be unlocked if we reach those stretch goals, and I guess that's your job to help us get there. It's looking promising, but if you want to see the neutral Rontagoth or the neutral Yogg-Sothoth, it's up to y'all, okay? That's how the faction Great Old Ones are going to work as a special new rule. Okay, next we're going to talk about the unique High Priest rules. So the way these work is every faction, if you're using the High Priest, this is actually a collectible High Priest from the first campaign. You can summon a High Priest, of course, as just another cultist. They cost 3 power. Well, if you're using the unique High Priest expansion, then when you we have 8 cards, okay, that are loyalty cards for each of the named High Priests. For example, there's an Asenath Waite High Priest card, and there's a Herbert West High Priest card, and there's a Keziah Mason High Priest card, and there's like 8 of them, okay? So when you summon a High Priest, you can either take one of the special cards for a unique High Priest, so your High Priest is now Herbert West, or you can not and just have a regular vanilla High Priest. If you take the card like Herbert West, then for the rest of the game, only you can recruit Herbert West. No one else can. They have to get someone else. They have to be satisfied with Joseph Kerwin or something. Okay. Now, each time you recruit your High Priest, on the front of your card is your named guy, like Herbert West. We'll just use him as an example. On the back side is the neutral vanilla High Priest rules. So, say you recruit Herbert West, then you sacrifice him. Then later on, you recruit your High Priest again. You don't have to have a Herbert West the second time. You can flip your card over when you recruit him, and then he's a regular High Priest. Because sometimes that's, you want that instead. Then if you use him again later on, you recruit him again, you can this time either you can go back to Herbert West or keep a vanilla, whatever you want, so you have a choice. Now in general, the special unique High Priests are slightly more powerful, but they're more specialized. Okay? So for example, let's give Herbert West. Herbert West's ability is that when you sacrifice Herbert West, you can immediately place 3 acolyte cultists from your pool in the area you remove Herbert West from. Okay? So in one way, he's better than a regular High Priest because you get 3 power worth of stuff. And you immediately get him placed. You don't have to take actions to do it. On the other hand, in some ways he's worse than a regular High Priest because the 2 power you get from a regular High Priest you could use for anything, not just cultists. And you might not have 3 dead cultists that you want to get back. So you have to pick and choose what is the right thing for this High Priest. And that's how the unique High Priests work. Okay, now we're going to talk about the colored gate rules. So as a lot of you have noticed, there's been these colored, these aren't them, of course, they aren't printed yet, but there's like been a green and a yellow and a blue and a red gate. These colored gates are coming up. And again, there's colored gates for all the factions. So later on, there'll be a pink one for the Chochos, assuming we unlock these, which, as always, it's up to you guys. But what we're going to use these for, the rules for this are that these are for a variant in the game where you play that the color out of space has infected your map. Okay, and what happens is whenever you build a gate in a color out of space map, you can choose either to build one of the still available colored gates or just a regular gate. Now, the color gates, during each Doom phase, you roll a d6. Now, as we know from the story, the color out of space, the color has a life cycle it goes through. Okay, there's like, first the meteor hits, then there's like a fertility effect on the surrounding area. Then it feeds, there's madness, there's a plague, and then finally it leaves. Okay, the idea is that the color is undergoing its life cycle on your planet. So each Doom phase you roll a d6 and you see which phase of the life cycle is currently most prominent for the color. So each colored gate has its own special thing it does. For example, the blue gate is a power gate. So if you're in the fertility phase, the power gate will give you an extra power in the Doom phase. If you're in the disease phase, the blue gate will give you one less power in the Doom phase. It will hurt you. Okay, so you have to like decide what you want to risk, what you don't want to risk. Some of the gates give you, there's a doomed gate, there's a ritual of annihilation gate that affects your ritual, there's one that affects units. They all do something. Okay, and it's the same for one gate, but it can be positive or negative, and it varies. Some of it, like during the feasting and the madness phases of the life cycle, some of the gates are good and some are bad. During the feasting, they're all good. During the blight phase, they're all bad. Then there's the meteor and the departure die rolls. The meteor departure forces a neutral base to turn into a colored one because a meteor landed, and the departure die roll forces a color gate to turn into a neutral because the color escaped. So that's the color rules. In effect, it becomes a sort of event deck for the game that gives you things that kind of cover the world and affect everyone a little differently and give you something else to consider while you're playing. I don't expect people will want to use it for all of their games. Okay, but sometimes it might be fun to try out. Also, if you're not using the color rules and you still have the color gates, you can still just use them as regular gates. A lot of people I know, like a lot of our guys, want to use them for when Cthulhu builds his first gate. It's going to be the green gate because that's his home gate and it's cool, but it doesn't do anything. It's just like bling, right? So that's the color gates. Now, let's talk about the two-player rules. We have finally, at long last, unlocked another set of two-player rules. Now, the original rules included in the core game are in some ways unsatisfactory to many players because the way they work is each player gets two factions they have to control. So instead of being simpler than the regular game, they're kind of more complex. But, I mean, they're fun, but they're not simple. So these rules are now use a three-player map with some modifications. Each of you gets one faction, and there's rules instigated to enable this to be a fun, balanced game, regardless of what the two factions are. They're in the process of being finished up and developed and tested, and they will soon be released as a PDF. They will also be included in the Omega rulebook, and as well, both sets of two-player rules. But these, with the only two games, will probably become the dominant set of two-player rules that people will play. Finally, we're going to talk about the build a faction stuff. So one of the things that was unlocked, I think on the very first day, was your own neutral faction. Now, again, I don't have gray cultists here because they aren't made yet, but I have the cultists that you get for as collectibles and their high priest. So what you're going to get in your package, if you pledge $150, is going to be 6 neutral cultists. They're going to be gray. Oops, dropped that. And a neutral high priest. Okay, and enough to make a whole faction. Of course, you can paint them whatever color you want. Now, in addition, we're releasing printable PDFs of the faction card. Of a blank, this is not blank, right? But it'll be blank. It won't have a picture here. It'll be all blank. So you write it. You can put stickers on, or if you want to write it in. And then it's going to have blank spell books that you can write on to put in the thing. Now, some people are saying, whoa, PDFs, why don't we get a real solid one? Well, the reason we're not giving you a solid printed one is because we want you to be able to have more than one neutral faction, right? If we print it out once you write on your thing, then you're done. You can't do more. As a PDF, you can do it again and again. If you go on various sites, for example, Board Game Geek, the Cthulhu Wars thing, there's a variant section that has like a dozen variant factions. In fact, one just got released where the guy's basing it on the Legend of Zelda game where Ganon is the enemy faction. So you can try that out if you want, I guess. That's what the build a faction stuff is for, to let you make your own faction. And those are the game rule stretch goals that we have. At this time, we don't have any more game rule stretch goals planned, but of course we still have things unlocked that will add to this. For example, unlocking the archives for these guys are coming up, and the more of the color gates. And as these get unlocked, we'll release them, and you'll have a full set of all these awesome things. Remember, just $150, and you get all this for free. Thank you.